Hey, I'm John Landis. Welcome back. I'm not really going to call this episode 4. We'll call it 3B instead. Episode 3 turned into close to a half an hour because there was a lot to cover. So this is going to be a little bit shorter. We're going to wrap some things up, and I'm going to do some things that I promised I would do in episode 3. So thanks for coming back. Hey, I'm John Landis. Thanks for watching. In episode 3 that we titled Milling, I covered the milling of aprons. We're putting chairs together in our shop here right now. And so I chose the aprons to start to show you the milling process. We did the face joining, the planing, the edge joining, and the ripping. And I promised you somewhere in that episode that I was going to show you how to do it with hand planes and go at it with a little different approach in case you weren't in that kind of situation. I made reference yesterday or in episode 3 as well as in what we shot for this one about being in a Manhattan apartment. It's true, wherever you are and whatever your circumstances are, how you're building and what tools you have, I want to press that doesn't matter. So in this shorter episode, I'm showing you the hand planing and the milling process through a different procedure than what we did in episode 3. So I think it's good for you to watch anyway, even if you do have power tools, because it's going to reiterate the steps that we take to go through the milling process. Also, toward the end of the video, I get you caught up on what we do with the back legs because they're curved and the front legs that are all milled at the same time. So sit back, watch, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth, and I hope you enjoy this one, and I hope it's a lot shorter than a half an hour. Just so you sit and watch and enjoy some things. And then we'll get back to it after that with, I guess we'll call it episode 4, the next one, instead of 3C. But this one's going to be 3B, we'll call the next one 4. So enjoy. All right, here we are at the bench. We're still doing the same procedure. We're flattening one face of this board. We need to do that. We did it on the jointer because we have access to a jointer. If you don't have access to a jointer, it's not that you're out of luck. Let's say you're a woodworker in an apartment in downtown Manhattan, and in the weekend you got to open up this small closet, pull out what tools you can use, and get busy that way. You can do that. You can do this here. Do it on your kitchen table if you want. So what we need to do is flatten this face. We're going to do it with a hand plane. We're going to push this over this, taking off the high spots, leaving the low spots until all things are even. It's exactly what happens on the jointer. We're just using that instead of electricity. So here we go. So the first couple passes, you're not going to feel much being removed because, frankly, you're just taking off what is essentially the peaks of the mountains, the high spots of the board. As you start to have success here, you're going to start to take bigger and bigger shavings because the peaks are becoming flatter and flatter and flatter. You're still leaving the valleys. You got to get down. You got to get these mountains down into the valleys. Hey, you know what's great about this is if you don't do this for a living like I do, and you haven't given yourself any sort of artificial timeline, maybe you accidentally got yourself into the doghouse and you got to build something for your spouse or your partner to get out of that doghouse, and you've put yourself in a timeline, all right, then you're in trouble. But if you haven't given yourself a timeline, and you can take as much time as you want on these projects, hey, this is a great way to build furniture. I mean, it's satisfying, it's cardiovascular, and you're getting right down to the wood. Sort of in the old-fashioned way of doing things. All right, this thing's just about flat here. Everything feels real nice. Here we go. We got one flat side, just like the one that we did over on the jointer. Okay? Maybe this one's even a little bit nicer. I don't know. So, multiple ways of doing the same thing. What we need to do is get this face flat. How we did it two different ways. We did it on the joiner, just showed you on the hand plane. The next step is to flatten the opposite face. So what we're going to do, since we're standing here at the bench, is we need to create a not only flat face opposite the one we just jointed, we need to not only make it flat, we need to make it parallel to this face. So what we can do here on the bench is take a measuring device. It can be a marking gauge, it can be a pencil and a ruler, it doesn't matter. We mark what thickness we want on the edge, here and here, referencing this face. We draw the straight line. We draw that same line all the way across. Then we lock this again into the vise, and we go at it, taking down the rough side till it's not only flat, but parallel to this. Now, is it going to be dead on exact? No, not unless you're a miracle person. But it's going to be very, very, very close, and that's what we need, nice parallel faces. I wanted to pull you in at the end of this for the full disclosure kind of thing, and that is, while I sat here and I went over milling an apron, we happen to be doing, like I said, in the shop now, among other things, a set of dining chairs. So we pulled aprons in as part of the display for you guys and the lesson for you guys. It doesn't matter though. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever project you're working on, milling is milling. But what I wanted to bring you up to date on was this. If you were an apprentice in my shop, and the apprentices that come through my business sort of shadow me for the first few months, then they are given tasks to do on their own, and so they sort of learn by looking over my shoulder, and I really want this series of videos to be sort of a series of you looking over my shoulder. And sometimes that's going to be difficult. Sometimes, you don't want a camera running 8-9 hours a day, literally looking over my shoulder. That would be boring watching. But I want to tell you what we've done here. So in episode 1, 2, or 3, I don't remember what it was, on wood, we talked about the beginning of milling and how we had to free boards from another board to release the tension. So we did that with the aprons in this episode. You saw how we milled this apron in this episode. But to get you caught up, and so that you're not really sitting at home and saying, hey, that's great, John, but I'm not doing aprons. I'm not doing pieces that are 3 inches wide and 3/4 inch thick. I'll tell you what we did as far as these chairs go. We milled the front and back legs, and we do those at the same time because they finish up at the same thickness of 1 5/8. What we did, or what we do, is take a larger 8/4 board, like I showed you in episode 3, and because we're doing back legs, we took the pattern for the back legs, and with chalk, we traced that pattern on a larger board. And we do it with chalk, again, so that we're not cutting to the precise pattern line. Then we took it to the bandsaw, and we cut those pieces out. And we got 12 individual back legs that, in the end, looked like this. They were cut free from the larger board. They're still rough. They're oversized to the pattern. They're still over thickness. We did the same thing with the front legs. We took 8/4 stock. They finish up at 1 5/8, so we ripped board after board after board off at 1 7/8 of 8/4 stock, and we just left it in the 2-inch dimension this way. So we had 12 just rough lumbered, not square, but square-ish boards. That's what we had when we started. Then we went over to the jointer, just like we did with the aprons, and I took these chair legs, the front chair legs, and I ran them over the jointer, and we got one flat edge. Then we went to the planer, and we planed them down to the 1 5/8, just over 1 5/8, giving us a sanding allowance. Then we went to the jointer. We turned it on edge, and referencing that fence, we gave it a 90-degree face to this face. So now we've got 3 faces done. Now these happen to be square to start with, so we just sent it through the planer again at the same setting so that these are perfectly square. With the back legs, you can see these things don't look pretty yet. They're still very over patterned. But what we did was face jointed these. You don't have to have stock that's square and flat and stuff like that to face joint. We took this to the jointer. We passed this face over the jointer, so we had one nice flat face. Then we took it to our planer, and we sent this through the planer, and again got this to just over 1 5/8, again for sanding allowance. So now I've got a stack of 12 back legs and a stack of 12 front legs that at this point have been dimensioned in their thickness. They're 1 5/8 heavy. Our next step is going to be to take these and cut these to length. These are ready to be cut to their final length. After that, we're going to start joinery. And it's the joinery that I want to talk about, because that's what's going to be in our next episode, is joinery. Again, in keeping with the theme of these instructional videos, I may show you a mortise and tenon joint, I may show you a dovetail joint, I may show you a slip joint, I may show you all three. What I show you is not the important part. I'm going to show you in some applications in our pieces that we have going here, and with these chairs, and with whatever you might have going on at home with your project, what joint we use here and why we use it. So the next episode is about joinery, why we do it, and then of course we'll show you how. Thanks for watching this. Hope you had a great time. See you next time.